Dr. K, what should I do? My son is so destructive. I am a post-traumatic parent and I'm really trying to manage, but he is so wild, destructive, and difficult that my triggers are getting triggered at this point. In one day, he spilled his paint from a model set on the floor on purpose just to see what it would look like when it was on the floor. He went over to his sister while she was eating supper and took an entire container of ketchup and just squirted it all over her plate and her hair because he thought that would be fun. And he broke the air conditioning unit in his room because he took a water gun and shot at it and it fried something electrical inside of it and now it's not working. I am at my wit's end. I never thought I would have to deal with this level of destructiveness. And I'm telling you right now, he's a neurotypical kid. This isn't like ADHD. There's nothing wrong with this child. Like people were saying, get him evaluated, but we got him evaluated. He doesn't have ADHD. He's not on the spectrum. He's a regular kid. He's just impossible. Have you ever raised a child who felt exuberant, difficult to contain, so emotionally draining to you that you're not sure what to do? If you're a post-traumatic parent and you find a child who is this level of exuberant really triggering because of your own trauma, hi, welcome. We get it. We're post-traumatic parents too. If this topic interests you, click subscribe below so you never miss another episode. Let's talk about raising really exuberant kids or kids that trigger us and trigger our trauma or reveal our triggers while we are post-traumatic parents. Your son is not wild and destructive and hyper and whatever words you said. Your son is two things. He is exuberant and he is curious. And I want you to constantly go into your head, and every time you say wild, destructive, whatever the pejorative terms you're using for your son, I want you to immediately reframe them as exuberant, creative, and explorer. Exuberant, creative, explorer. Because this is really like an idea from neuro-linguistic programming, but it's really a fundamental idea from human nature. The words we use matter because the words we use influence how we think, and how we think influences the words we use. And if you think of your son as, how can I control this wild, destructive child? That is one way of thinking. When you think about, what do I do with this exuberant explorer who is creative and energetic? How do I help him manage those tendencies? Because as an adult, his exuberance, his creativity, his curiosity, those are going to be massive assets in his life. It's going to be great. When he is a scientist accepting his Nobel Prize, thanking his mother for helping him explore his passions and interests, all of those tendencies are going to be amazing. When he is the best science teacher that a school has ever had, or when he is the best chef who owns the most incredible restaurant, or simply the best cook at home, all of those tendencies that he has are going to pay off. So it's very important because the words we use with our children, whether we use them out loud or whether we use them mentally in our own heads, those words become our children's inner voice. So I get the triggers. I get the frustration. It must be very difficult if you are lower energy because you're coping with your trauma. You're managing your triggers. And when he spills all the paint on the floor and now you have to get it cleaned up, it's hard to be like, oh, what an exuberant creative scientist he is, because you're tired. When you have to pay the repairman to fix the air conditioning unit, and maybe you've been working really hard this month and you don't have the money for it, that's hard. So I am not judging you for using that language. I just want to point out to you that mindfully think about using words like exuberant, creative, explorer, scientist, experimenter, whenever you have the wild, pejorative, like those terms that are coming up in your head. I am glad that you had your son evaluated, because we do want to know if a child is neurotypical. We do want to know if a child has sensory needs, if a child has learning needs, if a child has, ADHD, and if they need some help with that. So it's good to know that that's not the case. And again, look at the way you're thinking and the way you're talking about your son. Now, I'm going to give you some practical solutions. I want to give you practical solutions for the experimenter part, and I want to give you practical solutions for the exuberant part, okay? So when you have a kid who's naturally an experimenter, what you want to be doing with that child is providing them safe and controlled opportunities to experiment. Cooking, for example. And I have worked with some wonderful brands that sell cooking kits where kids can learn and make a dish for the family every month, where kids can learn how to bake. Is a natural way of experimenting. Like, what happens if I add a little bit more sugar? What happens if I add a little less sugar? What happens if we put in white chocolate chips instead of brown chocolate chips? What happens if we had cranberries instead of raisins, right? There's a lot of ways to experiment with a recipe and be joyful and exuberant, and even make a mess, because kitchens are usually cleanable. And then everybody gets to taste what you made. And it's yummy, and it's fun, and it's exciting. And you get to use all of those skills, but you don't feel like but it's controlled, and it's for a purpose. You don't feel like I'm just, spilling ketchup all over my sister's plate and she's yelling at me and mom's mad at me. You don't feel that way, because I made cookies and everyone ate them and everyone loved them. Even if the cookies burned, then we have that opportunity of modeling, like, okay, so this was one failed experiment towards making cookies. Next time we have learned, and you learn more data. So that's another example. I am going to show you a whole bunch of toys and games and supplies that I got at the most recent Sweet Sweet Summit, the one before that. Just different ideas of ways of using the experimenter, the future scientist, so that when your son takes that water gun and shoots it at the air conditioning unit to see what will happen, and what happens is it fries the motor. So now we know what happened. What you want to say to him is, I love that you're a scientist. I love that you like to experiment and figure things out. It's going to be amazing one day. For now, I am going to teach you how and when to experiment. I'm going to buy you supplies and give you things that you can experiment with, so you can use that tendency. So if the little Mr. Scientist inside your brain says, time to experiment, you're going to say, okay, Mom, the scientist in my brain wants to experiment. Let's experiment. And we're going to take these things out of your kit and you're going to experiment with them. One example of something, I'm just going to reach and get it, is I happen to love 3Doodlers. 3Doodlers are pens that you can use to, like, it's basically like a 3D printer, and you can use them to create all sorts of creations out of plastic. Like, you see this kid made a robot. You can make all sorts of houses, and there are many tutorials online with great projects that you can make. Now, it is the kind of toy that needs some adult supervision, especially if your son is young. So, but it's something to say, it's experimenting time. Let's play with your 3Doodler. Snap Circuits actually have a lot of kits. Some of these I have to show you, some of these I don't have on hand. Snap Circuits has a lot of kits. The most recent one I saw at Sweet Sweet was a kit where you can make all sorts of flying motorized paper airplanes. Again, paper airplanes, really fun, right? You can throw them all around the room, especially if they're motorized. You can make all sorts of inventions, and there's all sorts of project ideas. It's so much fun, and it's safe, right? It's not destructive. You can use electricity and make sparks and stuff, but you're not doing anything dangerous. So those are two examples that you can use and that you can show a child, like, the experimenter in your brain wants to experiment. Let's have some experiments available for you to use. There are a lot of STEM kits online where you can build a robot, where you can build, you can build an automatic gadget, you can build something that lights up. Snap Circuits has a cooperative like game that you can play where you're building circuits together or in competition. Those are all ways to use your experimenter part of your brain. Smart Labs makes a lot of science and STEM and STEAM geared toys. So here is Tiny Robots. Tiny Robots is a tiny little kit where you can make a robot, but they have all sorts of kits. There's like tiny art studios and there's tiny pottery painting studios. There's like a whole bunch of tiny, there's tiny baking. So again, something that you can experiment with where you can actually make something and no one's mad at you because you got to experiment and it was so fun. Another Smart Lab kit is this is a brain. This is a squishy brain, and it's like a dissectable brain made out of like plastic and rubber, and you can dissect it, and you can, and then you can find all the parts. They have another one that's a skeleton, so it's like the whole human skeleton. You can take it apart, and you can experiment with it. So the idea is, what can we experiment with? Maybe it's more about, maybe it's STEAM and it's more about art, and then maybe it's just simply buying a whole bunch of paints and buying, canvases and letting the child paint and learn how to paint and experiment with, adding different mediums onto the canvas so that they can can add fake leaves onto the painting, make it really funky colors, right? The idea is we said that he spilled the paint all over the floor. Maybe we want to do some art. Maybe that's the beginning of a career in art, and maybe we want to do some art, and we let you do that. I once worked with a mom, and her son was constantly scribbling on walls, and then we decided that what they need to do is put up in one room a gigantic whiteboard and a whole bunch of markers, and in a different room chalkboard paint, and they painted an entire wall with chalkboard paint because this kid liked the stimulation of really coloring with huge motions all over a wall or all over a gigantic chalkboard, and this was a way to do that. Chalk outside is the same thing. You have this big canvas, like the entire sidewalk, and you can draw, and it's exuberant, and you can move, and you can make really cool projects and designs. Chalk paint can give that opportunity. Speaking of outside, if you're in a climate where this works, any sort of play with water outside is so smart, because with water you can make such a mess and mom won't get mad. It's totally fine. I have a very exuberant 2.5-year-old son, and he really likes to make messes. Like, there's nothing more fun to him than like going over to a closet and taking a tub full of toys and dumping it out and hearing the giant crash. And indoors, sometimes that's a problem, like we've just cleaned up. But outdoors, you want to take cups of water and throw them against the wall and see the splotches that they make? Go ahead. You want to spray the hose? Go ahead. You want to take chalk paint and color all over and then pour water on it and watch it wash away? Go ahead. I'm fine. I remember one time he was just throwing water everywhere, and he looked at me and he goes, "You let?" And I said, "Yes, I let. We can play with water outside." And he was having so much fun. Soppy Sid makes these wonderful reusable water balloons that, again, you can have so much fun just using those water balloons and throwing them and seeing what happens to the water and exuberantly playing. Another really cool thing that I found also at Sweet Sweet was, I just want to find the other piece of this, is this Suddy Buddy, I think it's called. It's a bubble bath maker. So here's this little shark, and you attach it to the faucet, and then there's these little tablets, and they turn into this colored, foamy, fizzy thing for a bath, and it makes like a lot of foam, so it's a lot of fun to use between these two things. Again, this is really messy because there's all this foam and it's colorful, and then it washes away. The same thing with bathtub crayons, right? You can color all over the bathroom wall, and it takes a second to just wipe it off. So the idea is, let's use those artistic abilities, that creativity. Let's use the exuberance. In terms of exuberance and outdoor play, I found this also at Sweet Sweet. This is from the company that makes Exploding Kittens. And this is basically, they're Exploding Kittens catchables. They're these little balls, they're like made out of squishy material. And it has all these challenges, like you throw the ball up into the ear, the little kitten or whatever it is, up into the ear, and then you have to clap 3 times before you catch it. And there's challenge cards with more and more challenging things that you have to do. I feel like we played this game with like dodgeballs on the playground when I was a little kid, only they didn't have such cute, if you see how cute these kittens are, they're just like these little creatures are, then you'll understand just how much fun this game is going to be. So again, use your exuberance, and this is a soft, squishy ball, so you're not going to hurt anybody when you're throwing it and, you know, spinning around 3 times before you catch it. You can use your exuberance in a fun way, and it's fine, because remember, your exuberance is a good thing. And we want to make you see that and understand that. Another toy that I found at Sweet Sweet for exuberant kids is this Gecko Run. It's a starter set. It's done really cleverly because it attaches to the wall in a really wise, smart way. And you can make this incredible, incredible marble run. And you can reconfigure, you know, the cause and effect of where all the, you know, where all the connectors go, so that you can, you know, create a whole new marble run kind of, you know, challenge, and the marble goes and then it jumps from one to the other and then it slides down and then it spins, and there's just all sorts of ways of configuring it. It can keep a kid really busy creating a cool one, and then you can video it and send it to grandma, right? So you're using that creativity and that artistic skill, and of course you just want to make sure that the child is old enough. This is for ages 8+, because if the child is too young, you know, marbles can be a choking hazard, so just be careful with that. Perennial favorite for exuberant creative kids is clay. This is Play-Doh's ear clay, and you are more than welcome with something like clay. Here's where you can make a mess, and you can make a creation, and I can look at it and take a picture, and we can both enjoy that. And that's so much more fun and sanctioned than squirting ketchup all over your sister. And yet it kind of uses the same capacities and skills. In terms of outdoor play, and again, I don't know the age of your son, so it's a little bit hard to like find activities that are for sure geared to his age. But one thing that I found at, I think it was at Spring Fling last year, is these Educational Insights makes these kidoculars, and you can use them to like bird watch, or, you know, watch insects and catalog them, and then we can like go online and look up what the bird was that we found. And again, let's take that scientist part of you and that outdoors part of you, and let's work with them and use them together. You never know, this kid may grow up to be a, I don't know, ornithologist or something. In terms of the exuberance of the needing to move, I found at Sweet Sweet, Batat makes this like foam installation for playrooms, and the foam installation is very configurable, and you can build like a fort, and you can build like a little playhouse, and it has like a slide that you can stick in. And it's relatively economical. It's being sold in Target. It is, you know, the price point was not high, and the cover of the foam blocks comes off, and it's washable. So your kid can like eat dinner in there. Maybe eating dinner next to his sister is not working, and maybe he needs to like sit in the ear fort right next to the table and eat dinner in there, and then he doesn't want to squirt ketchup all over his sister, because then he can jump on his foam blocks and he can make himself a little castle, and he has options. But because it's small and it's relatively cheap, even in a small apartment, you can fit a play installation like that in and use it creatively. Okay, you know what? Why don't you go into your little fort and you can eat your supper in there, because I know I can wash it. Another toy that I love for outdoor play, and I'm only showing you like a little piece of it, is the Stoppelstein. These are these like stepping stones. They come apart. They made it of foam, and the foam is washable. You can make like stepping stones. This is like part of a much bigger set. You can like make stepping stones and then skip from one to the other. We were just drilling multiplication, and we used 2 sets of Stoppelstein, and we were like doing like 3, 6, 9, right? And like the kid was jumping from, and then we made a number line for 4, 8, right? So like the same idea. The nice thing about Stoppelstein is, aside from the fact that, you know, it's fun to play with, it could like be so many things. It could be a hat, it could be a step stool, so if your kid is helping you cook, they can stand on it. It can be a seat, so they can sit on it. Another thing is what it comes on this base, and the base is like is sort of like a Bosu, you know, the bottom like gives you that vestibular sense. You can rock on it and balance on it, and then you can also stack the Stoppelstein on it. So again, just there are so many options for outdoor play. But the important thing, because I'm not a toy store, I'm not trying to sell you any of these products, I'm just giving you ideas for the fact that your child is an exuberant creative scientist. So let's give exuberant things to do. Another thing for exuberant, by the way, is I love stomp rockets. Like you jump on them and the rocket goes flying into the sky. I love bottle rockets where, you know, you can use ingredients to create an explosion, but it's outdoors and it's safe. And yeah, it makes a mess. The baking soda and vinegar get everywhere, but it's like on the pavement. Nothing will happen. Give the exuberant, creative, scientist part of your child room for growth. Accept it. Say to this child, I love that you are a natural experimenter. I love that you love to move. I love that you love to be creative. I love that you're a future scientist, that you're a scientist right now and you like to figure things out. These are wonderful. These are wonderful characteristics about you. I'm proud of them. And we have to contain them. Now is not the time for exuberance. Now is the time for quiet hands, quiet voices, quiet bodies. When you feel like quiet hands, quiet voices, quiet bodies is not accessible to you anymore, tell me and we'll figure out what to do with exuberance, right? Now is not the time for creative, but I'll tell you what, tomorrow we'll figure out an experiment that we can do. Right now we're gonna eat dinner as a family, but right after dinner, we can bake. Right after dinner, you can go outside and draw something incredible with chalk and I'll take a picture of it and I can't wait to see what you draw, right? Right now, we're gonna, right now, we have to fix the air conditioning in your room, and from now on, if you want to use your water gun, outside is where you can use it, and I'll even draw some targets for you on the back of the house, and you can shoot your water gun to your heart's content. And we can experiment. There's probably a lot of resources online about like things you can put into a water gun and all sorts of art that you can use with a water gun. So the idea is you're exuberant, and that's okay. Not only is that okay, that's a strength. It's incredible that you're exuberant. I am happy that you're exuberant. And I'm going to teach you how to use your exuberance at the right times and manage it until it is the right time. You're creative, and that's fabulous. I'm going to give you outlets for your creativity. And not always, not right now, but I will give you outlets for your creativity, because your creativity will one day be something that you do with your life. You will use that creativity and it will be an excellent thing. And you're a scientist, you're an experimenter, you figure out how things work and why they work the way they do. That's amazing. I'm really impressed. And you know what? We have times of the week that we can be scientists and that we can do experiments. Right now isn't that time, but there will be a time. You like to squirt ketchup out of a ketchup bottle. You know what? I can give you an empty ketchup bottle and we can put like watercolor paint in it, and you can like make an art installation outside. You can squirt all over the place. You can squirt water everywhere outdoors. So the idea is there's always a way to use these tendencies that you have, but you as the post-traumatic parent, I want you to really, whenever you notice yourself using terms for your child that are pejorative, wild, disruptive, rude, whatever those words are, I want you to restate them as positives. My exuberant scientist, creative kid. Every single time, because words matter, language matters, even language that your kid never hears, language that you just have in your own brain, that language is going to matter for your child. Because if you look at your child with, I love what a scientist you are in your eyes, he will feel that. And if you look at your child with like, oh my goodness, what a disruptive, wild kid he is, he will feel that. And you don't want that to become his inner voice. You want his inner voice to be, I am a creative, exuberant scientist and my mom believes in me. And that's his inner voice. So if this video has meant something to you, if this video was helpful, please click subscribe below so you never miss another episode. If you want to hear more about toy hacking and how we use toys in our parenting plan as post-traumatic parents because we want to share joy with our children, then click subscribe below, because we talk about this all the time. If you have a question about a tendency your child has and you don't know how to gamify that tendency, you don't know how to turn it into a positive, comment below. I will definitely have a toy or a game and be able to turn that into a gamified skill that you're teaching or a gamified capacity that you're encouraging. And if you want to hang out where the fellow post-traumatic parentings hang out, check out at Dr. Kozlowitz Psychology on Instagram. The Post-Traumatic Parenting Podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts if you want to hear long-form interviews with experts on everything trauma, trauma recovery, or post-traumatic parenting. And as always, the Post-Traumatic Parenting book is a book that every member of the post-traumatic parenting community has had a hand in. So keep your eyes out for all of those things. Until next time.